Since it's getting on, I'm going to introduce our speaker, who I have quite the privilege of doing, because one of the best one of the best things about this position is I not only get to make new friends, but I get to chat with old ones. And I've known Joe for a long time. He's been a mentor to me, a friend. For those who don't know Joe, Joe was a curator at Huntington Gardens for a number of years. He also did the landscaping. If you attended the convention at Claremont College, Joe was responsible for all the landscaping, and it's beautiful. So, as I said, it's my privilege, and I'd like to introduce you to Joe Clements.
Hi, everyone.
You want to share your screen, Joe?
Yes, we can do that now. I don't know why I got so many.
It's starting to share.
You okay? You ready?
Ready.
Okay. So you want to know about shows, succulent shows, and judging. And through this show, I'll show you different things. So I need to get the show on the road. And I want to tell you that this show is a composite of many shows that I photographed and had a privilege to be at and judge many. The picture you see is a early show. It was one of the Huntington floats at the Rose Parade. And I have about 30 shows, and they go from all over Southern and Northern California, and Boston and Philadelphia and so forth. So there will be pictures of different things. I have as many as 500 pictures. Well, I'm not going to show you all 500 now, but I have more than that of shows throughout the years that I've taken. And I haven't done a show in several years, so it's been about 5 or 6 years since I've taken pictures, but I think these pictures will show you how to judge plants and that kind of thing. Shows create interest and harmony. That's why we have them. They really are important to our hobby. And by the way, I think that as membership grows, this is the best way to grow your membership. No question about it, because it gets the people who see the plants, the amazing plants that are in the show. Most of the plants that people see are something from Target or Walmart or someplace like that. And they're plants that are just not quite like what the plants they see in the show. They do educate the public about our plants and how we grow them and that kind of thing. And that's an important thing. Judge shows do improve the growing of succulents with the competition as a group like that. And shows raise money for the society through sales and that kind of thing. So it's important for the CSSA to have shows. Here we see a couple of growers, and I'm going to go as fast as I can because there are 60 or so slides in this show. Here we see a couple of growers at a large show. This is the inner city show. And the shows may have as many as 1,500 plants and over 100 classes. If you know Gene Joseph and Duke Benedon, these are two judges at the show, and the judging at the show is really important. where can I learn about succulent plants and judging? And I hope you notice that at every point that I try to make, I show pictures and I try to show the participant, like Mark Meridian here of his Dioscorea elephantippes. Well, where do I learn about succulents and judging? From books. I know when I started out first into the cactus world, the only books were Jacobson and Backerberg and maybe Britton and Rose. But today you have a plethora of books, many books with a culture and so forth of how to grow the plants and how to do well. You should look as a learning judge, you should look at the journals and newsletter you receive. They are very important and they do tell us about how to grow the plants and what the plants are, where they come from, those kind of things. Meetings, clubs, or convention are a good way to learn, a good way to train yourself about judging. And nurseries and nursery catalogs that have dated back as far as 1890. The blank catalog in 1891 or two was had succulent plants in it and so forth. But today there's some really good catalogs of nursery, and they are very good. I like the one from the catalog from San Marcos Growers because how it explains the origin of the plants and how they grew and that kind of thing. But a really good way to judge or to look to help your judging is to go to the plant shows and see what you like and then learn at the show by clerking. If you clerk at a show, that can help you grow in the way you grow. And the internet can also, but when you do the internet, you better be careful because there's a lot of BS out there. A lot of it's pretty bad, but you need to learn how to use it and use the internet wisely. It can really be a big help to you. And visit arboretum like the Huntington or Kew Gardens, or maybe up north at up in Northern California at the gardens up there. And then take field trips to the location and where your plants grow and you want to see. Here are a couple of judges, and there we see Yvonne Buck, a couple of judges and two clerks. And clerking is a good way to learn how to judge the plants. And the clerk should listen to the judge, but good judges never stop learning. They just got to continue. So I hope I even learned from our journals today and so forth that, I'm still learning and I expect a good judge to do. And the clerk should listen to what the judges have to say about the plan. They shouldn't interfere with the judges, but they should. And the judges should have a good demeanor and even keel when they're judging plants. And by the way, judging plants, there is always a bias about judging. You have a bias, but you try to be fair as possible with the plants that you see. And many times you've seen them before if you're a judge and have been around. And how do we select certain judges? Well, this is, here we see Michael Buckner and Artie. They're judging plants here at the Inner City Show. And you should select judges that are recognized authorities and experienced growers of succulent plants. You should select judges to participate in local and national shows. And you should select judges that are members of CSSA. It's a good thing to do. In the past, we tried to set up a a group of judges that were recognized as certified judges in CSSA, but that hasn't been done in several years, but we need to do something like that. Judging takes into account many characteristics of each entry: the condition of the plant, the size, the degree of maturity, the staging, the grooming, and nomenclature. And usually these are only guidelines. The condition of the plant is by far out and away the most important thing. It's 75%, but these are only guidelines. Certain shows may be a little heavy on the staging, and the nomenclature is a small percentage. And notice this this Echinoceros here, and that's the grower of that plant. And we see the principles of show judging about, I don't know how long ago, but I can remember that the Gordon Rowley had these principles that he pushed out in one of the journals. I think it was the British Cactus and Succulent Journal. And anyway, his principles that he proposed were these, and these are right. They still apply today in how you judge a plant. So often you look at a plant and say, well, that's the best plant in the group that you're judging. And you look at that plant and you say, that's the best plant. And then that's the number one plant you go. But often you'll choose a standard or a group of plants that are very similar. And that's called a norm or standard as far as Gordon Rowley had it. And then you want to eliminate the ones that are unfit. And when it's unfit, it may not be the one that's the very best, but it's still a good plant. And but you may do pointing, but pointing in a large show such as the inner city show might take you forever and a day. So pointing often is not used. And then applying the uniqueness. If you have two groups, two kind of plants that are quite a bit different than each other, such as the plant you see here, this variegated form of an astrophytum, and the Ficus pomeroy of Michael Buckner. Those are completely different, but you can judge it on the basis of its uniqueness for its character within a group of plants. Another person in the English, was John Pilbeam, who developed what plants are worthy in a show and not so worthy. Some plants just don't do well and some plants do. I think that the plant you see here is a fairly worthy plant of a show. My gosh, it's unbelievable. But how about this one, Bill Muncase's? This is a mammillary Humboldtii. I wished I could grow something like that. That's quite unbelievable. We see here Peter Wolkowiak. It's Adenium from Peter, and Peter always seems to win the hernia award, where he's able to show his plants. They are so large, this weighs 200 or 300 pounds to get it into the show. And then some shows, this is from the Philadelphia show, it's a plant from Jerry Berard, is a beautiful form of Echeveria ciliata. And I'm going to show you several plants of that group. When you see a plant like this Pherocactus chrysocanthus from Richard Dimming, you just see the glow of the plant. The body looks beautiful. It's clean, it's nice, it's groomed, and it's grown well. It's grown perfectly. I just love the look of plants like that, to see those kind of things. And this is the kind of plants that do make our show. Even though this is a probably blue ribbon winner, the plants that are second and third and the rest of the plants in a group or a class are really important to the show, just as important as the blue ribbon winners in the show. Here we see two nice plants, and I think they're worthy. One of them from Michael Buckner is a Cyphostemma serosa, and then we see a Cyphostemma cytiana from Larry Grammer. Those are beautiful plants, well grown and well worthy of any show. And we see here two plants, Epithelanta of Alex Abrahamian and Matakana Henian of Henii from Charles and Joanne Spots. Very worthy plants of any show. Here we see a Chrysula of Columella from Jerry Barad and a Chrysula tetragonum from Michael Buckner. Chrysula Chrysula tetragona is an easy plant to grow, and it's very easy to propagate. But what Michael Buckner done is beyond the pale here, is because the grooming, the trimming, and the display of the show or the staging has made that plant more worthy, and it's now competitive with a lot of other plants, or could win a Blue Point ribbon. But plants that are really nice, that really stand out, are plants that just kind of glow with that, and they do stand out in that. A common growth here of Melocactus mantanzanus from the Philadelphia show is this plant. And these kind of plants just make up the show. I've seen better or bigger or more mature Melocactus, but this one is so well grown. It's also a very, very worthy plant. Here's a couple of more. Euphorbia unispina from Petra Chris, and then Stephania rotundifolia. That's quite an uncommon plant from a very uncommon family of Southeast Asia and down to Australia. This Tifocast it knocks me off to see these kind of growers and these kind of plants that they do show. This is a Ron Harris plant of this Tifocactus. I wished I knew, and I didn't record the name of who grew this Dorstenia, but it's a well-worthy plant of any show. Or this Obergonia denegrii. I don't know the grower of this one too, but I would like to, because it's really perfect. This is a grower, Kyle Robinson, who was a novice. And to grow this Blosfeldia like that, Lilliputiana, that's quite unbelievable to see in a show. Talicodon schaeferianum from Chris Rogers, and a Mammillary bullii from Martin and Kara Osler. Now, if I don't include your name, don't be worried about that, because I probably have plants that have your name with them. Here we have a group of Asclepiads, and the group of Asclepiads is so wide-ranging here with so many different forms that we have to have and use that uniqueness of the plants. Is it unique in its own category? And that's the way you can decide, if you're a judge, between these plants. They're so diverse in their look and and it may be that you're judging the Asclepiads in one group. So which do you pick? Well, you use the uniqueness test of Gordon Rowley, of how it's done in each category. Well, here's another plant from Peter, and Peter just seems to grow plants that are so beautiful and so quick that they're amazing. And when it's flowering such as this, you've got to give it extra points because it deserves it. I just like this look of the Ariosi areata. I think this is from the San Diego show, but I don't know who is showing it. But I think it is from San Diego. How about Orthias? I do like the Orthia Emilii, and if I were judging these, I would say that the Orthia Emilii is better than the cultivar Yamadona of Arnold Cheney's. But maybe this is a better Haworthia. I don't know. When I see a plant like that, my mind is boggled by how well a grower can grow a plant that looks like that. It amazes me how good the growers have become. And by the way, as you have to live and think of what growers do, and you have to mimic what they do because that's the way you grow in how do you grow the plants. Here's a plant with a common little pot, but it's beautiful and it's well grown from Frank Nudge, members of the Riverside Club. But beautiful in its display. And many plants and staging and some shows limit the pots in uniform signs and how they look, and they put more emphasis on the culture of the plot. I think Tim Harvey would be very proud of this kind of thing because he even has a class in a show of plastic or plants that are in a very common pot. And then who needs a pot anyway? Like this Abromitiella of Jim and Roberta Hanna. It's just taken over the pot itself. How wonderful is that? That's an award-winning plant. But staging is important in plants today. It shows today. And these shows, often the shows of like the Inner City or CSSA anymore, do not limit the pot and how it looks. Gone are the days of the redwood tubs and the Denny Moore beef stew cans for pots. You have beautiful plants and well displayed. Here is a plant of Sedum frutescens, a fairly common plant, but beautifully displayed. I don't know what Michael Buckner was thinking. Maybe he was thinking about the Fibonacci ratio or Leonardo's Da Vinci, the golden rectangle when he did this pot, but the plant, but the pot and the plant and the staging of it is like a picture. It's something of the golden rectangle. It's artwork. And that's what our shows have developed into now with kind of artwork. Well, here's a plant from Woody, and notice the off-centeredness of the plant. That adds to the overall look or the other feeling of artwork, where the plant is climbing out, and then the rocks are in there to balance the plant and so forth. It just gives a better look to a plant and how it looks and that kind of thing. So staging is quite important in the plants today. Here's Adenium obesum grown by Larry Grammer. And how Larry grew this is unbelievable. The plant must have been laid on its side at some point in time. And then it grew the caudex below, but then it changed and grew above. How forward thinking that somebody like Larry Grammer could have thought that this plant would grow up like that and be a better display of art because of how he's going to do it. It just all works together. It's artwork. I just think these kind of plantings and growing of that are better. But sometimes, like Steve Southwell, Northern California, liked like this is centered in the pot like that. The plant is centered, and that works too. Sometimes, the centering of a plant like that can be boring, but this with the rocks and everything, it's wonderfully done. Dioscora sylvatica by Steve Southwell. Well, here is an Ipomea plantense from Peter again. And I don't know what Peter puts in his soil, but it must be the same kind of soil that was used by Jack and the Beanstalk, because he can just grow plants like they grow wild. And it's centered in the pot and it works well too. I'm going to talk about names here in the naming game. This is a Parodia Cactus magnificus. When we name a plant, that does help to show that we name it correctly as we can. But sometimes we have different names for plants, and this becomes a problem. This Parodia here, magnifica, if Pat were to call this a Cactus magnifica, I think as a judge I would not knock her down for doing such a thing as calling it a cactus, because there is some conjecture about the plants and their names like that. If we look at this, we see some, and the slide in the upper left-hand corner is from Gunnar. Gunnar took pictures at Pitzer, and this is from Pitzer College. And he shows here the names that were given: Cleistocactus, Bolivarceres, Borzicactus, and then Echinopsis. It seems like Echinopsis is going to swallow every plant, or at least half of the plants in South America. I don't know if I'd call it an Echinopsis. And there are lots of other plants that are a problem in the naming. I show you one here. Echinocactus rapa has several names. I didn't put the right name on that, obviously, because you should know what the right name should be on that. But I call this plant, this is a cultivar in the lower right corner of this screen. I called it Trichoceros just to be stubborn. And this is one we're propagating at Pitzer College. It's from a hybrid swarm that it came from Hans Brech. But anyway, I named that differently. And by the way, this plant in the upper right-hand corner is a not show-worthy plant. That's because you shouldn't be showing it in a show. And here's a plant here's a crest of the plants that are cactus crests, and there's several of them here. And the beauty of these is shown with the plant in the middle there. One of the things that you need to do when you're judging like this, here again, you should judge on the uniqueness of each group of plants that it represents. So this is quite unique or quite different between these forms of Dave's cactus. There are 5 different cactus forms. Maybe you like the disco cactus horsey better, or the Areocarpus retusa better. I know who did that. Mistakes often seen at shows are these. When you have a beautiful plant like that, be sure and clean your pot. The pot just is not good enough here. You can use something on it to clean it and to make it look nice, but the plant is gorgeous. And you need to grow the plants in the right size pot. If you got the pots too large for the plant, then you should redo the planting and redo the pot like that. Make it better. Sometimes the pot can be, this is a woody plant. Sometimes the pot is too small for the plant like this, but the plant is well grown. You see it like that. When you're showing, often when you're showing plants, don't let the pot outperform the plant. I know the plant on the right side is a little etiolated, but the pot just really detracts from it, and so does the pot in the one on the left side. The pot is just too gaudy. Uh, it just takes away from the way the plant should really look. So no, so don't let the plant get better than the pot. And now you're looking at a Perodia Notocactus horstii, same plant. Which one would you take? Would you take the one on the left or the one on the right? And I think you can see that the one on the left is much better grown. And as a judge, you should be able to tell this. You should be able to see the difference of growth and how one plant looks as opposed to another. To have two different plants, this one the one on the right almost looks like it's not so well grown in that, but this one is beautifully grown. In shows, we have miniatures that we show, and these are miniatures. Usually shows limit the plants to about the pot of 3 inches or so. But there could be a big diverse group of plants, as this Avonia or this Pediocactus here. But usually the pot is what is under 3 inches. And there are collections and shows, and we judge the collection. I like the collection on the left with Haworthias like that, where they're individual pots. But the plants on the right with lithops in it, those are quite nice too. And it actually looks just like a garden and wonderfully done also. Well, I want you to be the judge of these kind of plants here. There are this is a group of gymnos, and we can see the blue tag. The blue tags show that this is the advanced group of growers, and I want you to judge these plants here. What would you say would be your first? Maybe that's your choice. Well, you look at the group and you say, well, can I eliminate the unfit ones, the ones that don't fit the others? It doesn't mean to be unfit, doesn't mean they're bad. Those are really great plants. But how about the plants that I like? I think if I were picking these plants, I like the two on the bottom and the one in the upper left. That's the Gymnocarnesianum here, and this is a Gymnoorchitrinii, and this is a stellatum, a Gymnocalycium stellatum. I give points to this one because it's flowering, but boy, between these three, that's a tough situation in judging. If it were me, maybe I'm a little biased, but I like that flowering one, 1, 2, 3. But you can see how clean this is, even this is. And these plants, these extra plants, are just as important to our show as this blue ribbon winner would be, or this blue ribbon winner, depending upon the judge may like this one. Another judge may like this one a little better. There is a bias in judging plants. If we see these two Succulent, which would you choose? I like both of them. And I think I might choose the one on the right, the Succulent ruchii, over the Succulent Arenacea. The Arenacea has grown beautifully, but the pot's a little bit small. But I like the ruchii on the right-hand side. Here we see four agaves. Which do you like? And I named them here purposely. I named these that we see. The plant in the upper right-hand corner is FO76. That's Flipioptera 76. That's how it normally came in, and there was a lot of conjecture about what its name is. I think we call it Titanota today, agave titanota. But which would you choose? You know, as a judge, you should be able to be thinking about this, you know, even though you're not a judge and you want to be training yourself in a show, you're looking and see which did the judges pick and which do I like. It may be different than the judges. And you may critique the judges themselves and say, well, this plant is better. Well, I like this one, number one. This is a form of Tumiana bella boy. It has beautiful filaments of white and that. This is a Larry Grammer plant, by the way. And I think one, I might go 2 and 3 here like that. This is grown by Mary Brumbaugh. Uh, I think it's perfect in the way it's grown, but I do like this, the staging, the plant itself, and how it looks. You may like it a little bit different than I do. We got a problem here with the astrophytums. This you could run into this. There are several different kinds of astrophytums here. How would you judge this category? Can I eliminate some of them? Or which do I think is the number one plant? Oh, I think I'm going to eliminate this one and this one as unfit. Not that they're unfit, they're perfect, they're well grown. When we look at this astrophytum here, for me, that might be my number one. But this is very, very nice. And we don't often see multi-headed astrophytum asterias. I would say, for me, I think this one, and maybe 2 and 3, but that's only me. I just like the way this one looks. It has a beautiful character about it and so forth. And don't often see that nice a plant. Here we see 2 pachypodiums, one from Mark Meridian. And by the way, as you know, if you're judging in shows that you recognize who grew the plant, you know it, you should try to be fair in every case. It's not about personality. It's about fairness. You need to be fair with your selection of what you think is well grown. This one is beautifully grown and has a nice caudex below and is flowering. I've seen this one flower before for Mark with its big yellow flowers. I don't know. I kind of like this one's tougher to grow, though. We know it's tough to grow. This is a lot easier to grow. In fact, you can grow this one in the soil in Southern California pretty well outdoors, but it's well grown. So whichever you choose would be a good choice. I want you to look at this group of Azoaceae. The plants here are very good, but I want you to look especially at these 3 Trichodiadema bulbosums. Which one do you think is the best one here between those 3? And if you look real closely, you'll be able to see that the growth of this plant has been trimmed and very nice. And I think this is number 1, number 2 because of its size and maturity, and maybe number 3. So I like this one the best. But the Mestaclemia in the back right here wins the whole show here. It just blows the other away. It blows the others away. Look at how it's trimmed, how nice it's trimmed, as opposed to this one. The grooming here is much, much nicer and much better. So you can see the difference between that. And to grow a plant that old and that nice, that's beautiful. Looking at these mammillarias, we see a couple of mammillarias that are the same, and I showed them the same. This one here and this one here are Mammillaria plumosa. The plumosa on the right is a little overgrown. Now, it may be the time of the year or something that this one here has a growth spurt, and so is a little more open. But I think this Mammillaria plumosa is better. And if we look at all of them, which do you choose? Well, I do like this plumosa very much. I think it's very well grown. And this Hana is a much slower plant than maybe these. So there is a difference, and you got to get to know the difference between several of these plants. And I do like this Mammillaria magnifica in the upper right. I just think that these categories, and you have to make a decision. This is a person has cleaned up their pot a little. This is the same pot of a plant as the one we saw before, but it's much cleaner and much nicer. And so they're all competitive to be very well. And it's up to you as a judge to make the decision. But I think this is number one, and this is number two, and I think this would be my third plant. This kind of lost because its growth is a little bit soft right now. So maybe it would be better later. I got a bigger problem here. If you look at the problem here with these plants, the problem is that the three, the Mammillaria plumosa, the Mammillaria hawaiiana, and the microthele here are really gorgeous plants, but so is this. And this is much tougher to grow. It's Mammillaria lutea. Oh my gosh, how do you decide between such well-grown plants as between them? Well, there comes a time you should just be able to make your decision. For me, I like the microthele here. But you may choose the lutea because it's a lot tougher to grow and the size of this is unbelievable. But this is pretty doggone good too. So how do you make a decision? For me, there's number one, maybe number two, and maybe number three. And I hate to say it, but to push this one out into a category which is a loser category, why that's unbelievable that would be anything else. I would like to see this in a group of different kind of mammillarias, not in these large bowls like this. So maybe in the choice of being in a different group. Whoops. Here we have four echeverias, different ones. I like the one in the upper left. It's my first. And when I see that, I just think that outshines the others. I like this plant very much because of its difficulty of growth. I think it's harder to grow this plant. It is smaller than the others, but it is a very nice plant belonging to Leo Pickoff. This is Mammillaria lowii. In the bottom corner here is Echeveria ebony. Very nice plant. Here are 6 plants from the San Diego show, and there are 6 ferrocactus. I think you ought to be able to choose as a good judge which one would be your very best. And I think for me, the very best is shown is how this plant looks like this. I think this is Ferrocactus plumosa. And for number 2, I might give it to this one. A little bit more difficult for Ferrocactus americanthus than having to grow to this one here, which is one of the Ferrocactus gracilis from Baja California. This is an odd growth plant here, and it is a Ferrocactus glossicans, but without spines. But I do like this one the very best. I think it just shines. It just looks nice. And I hope you can see the difference between the two if you're looking at how the difference might be of these plants. Here's 3 plants of the yellow group. And by the aloes, by the way, have a lot of names that are that are changed, like aloe barbary or aloe bainsi, or you might call it aleodendron. You better give a little bit of slack on these names and so forth. The plant on the left is a woody mimic plant. It's a beautifully grown plant and well displayed and everything in flowering. And this is Haworthia, Iris, Haworthia, uh, Echinus, and this one here is Aloe discoinsii. This discoinsii I know about 15 years ago, I'm sorry, about 15 years ago, the plant here was 37 years old. It is a collected plant, and it was usually used aloe discoinsii as a dwarf aloe. It is flowering, and it has about 100 heads. And usually, aloe discoinsii is one of our miniature plants, and this is quite unbelievable. And believe it or not, if I were to choose a plant, this is a one of a kind of one of all time. It's probably the original clone was brought in by John Lavranos. So, but this has over 100 heads, and believe it or not, I give it a better score than this one. So I would do 1, 2, and 3 right there. Here we see two different plants in the same group of plants. They're cucurbits, and one of them is I keep saying that, mammillaria, Serregia humbertii and Africana. You can grow Africana in the ground pretty easy, but humbertii is a little bit more difficult, and it has been raised in its pot and shown like that. I just think the humbertii is number 1, and I think the Cadrassus is number 2. Well, that's it for me, and that's all, folks, and a Merry Christmas to you. There's some of the plants that I grow here in Minden, California, Minden, Nevada, and that's all.
Well, thank you,